We are live. Welcome everyone joining us live. We just wrapped up a very brief working session back in our club practitioners space before we went live. I'm logging on live on YouTube right now. We're doing real world application. We're going to shift right now to invite everybody in from the internet so that you can watch us live if you're watching on the replay as well. I'm so glad that you're here. We're talking clinical work. Today, I'm approaching a conversation topic. Are you problem solving or making problems? And I mean that in the most loving, provocative way. Provocation can be loving, and I mean that in the most loving way. Some of what happens here in clinical reasoning, which we've been talking about as a major focus for the last few weeks, is that we don't recognize how we're thinking and whether or not how we're thinking is helping or making it harder. And so this is all a leadership concept, but the leadership does come into how we lead ourselves through a treatment plan. So one of my favorite, most powerful leadership coaches of all the training that I've ever done, a very powerful leadership transformational coach, once said, many times has said, your problem is not the problem. Your problem is how you see the problem. She even wrote a book with the title. Now, I might not have the title exactly word for word, but the idea is actually consistent whether I move the words or not. You don't have a problem. You have a problem because of how you're seeing the problem. So life is going to life. We're all going to be faced with things. And if you are a clinician working with client cases that are coming to you with real issues, real pain, real pathology, real histories of surgery or PT or whatever they have had in their body, that's a problem. And our brains are solved to or wired to solve the problem. That's our physiology. So those are static. Those two things don't move, meaning the people that we serve are coming to us because they have a problem, and our brain is wired to solve that problem. Easy. The complexity here, though, isn't always in what the client presents with. The complexity is in what we do with our brain who's auto-solving problems. It's wired to look for problems, it's wired to see everything as a problem, and it's wired to want to solve the problem. If we're not managing that process, though, it does go on autopilot. And so what do I mean by that? If your brain is working on autopilot, you're not conscious of what's happening. You're wired for it to be automatic. And I'm now live on internet. Hi guys, I can see you guys here watching live in the chat. Hello, hello. I'm glad that you're here. So I'm talking client work today, and I'm weaving in this idea that our leadership and the way we lead our brain through that complex client work also matters. So again, it's not that they have a problem. It's not that you have a brain that solves the problem. It's what you're doing with your brain when the problem from your client presents, or when any problem, by the way, presents. If you have a problem with experience in your life or a dynamic in a relationship, or maybe you're in training right now and you think that the training is the problem. The problem is not what you're experiencing, it's the meaning that you're making in that problem and how you're taking yourself through that problem. Meaning, how are you leading your way through an autopilot case? And your brain is on autopilot. Your brain thinks 40.6 thoughts per minute. And that happens whether you direct them or whether you allow them to just happen. And allowing them to happen would mean I'm not doing anything about it. My brain's just wired to run that many thoughts. That's helpful because your brain's also wired to blink your eyes and beat your heart, and that keeps you alive, and that's a great thing. When it comes to conscious thinking, though, or facing problems or solving problems, that autopilot isn't in our favor because it's laced with everything that we've already experienced in life. It's going to warn you about all the things that are hard for you. It's going to warn you about all the times that you got hurt. It's going to caution you from leaning in and being vulnerable because of that one time that the embarrassment just stung so much. Anytime we have anything in our history that has an emotional quotient, component, or relationship, those are the ones that are memorized the strongest. So if you had a joyful experience, you'll remember that memory really quickly. If you had a painful experience where you felt shame or embarrassment or guilt or potential harm, you're going to remember that one also top of mind. Now, that doesn't help us when we're facing a new problem where there isn't a threat of being shamed, blamed, or harmed. But our brain will rewire us with a filter that says, you better be careful here. there could be something bad happens. It's what stops us from asking questions because we don't want the embarrassment, because we remembered clearly the embarrassment that we had years ago that one time. It also is why we don't lean in to relationships to solve conflict first. Well, I remember that one time I went to go solve that conflict, says your brain, and that was emotionally destructive because that relationship did not end well or that exchange did not end well. You'll remember that really quickly. So it's not that we're thinking that's the problem. Your brain is not your enemy. It's how you're thinking and how you're leading yourself through your thinking, given that your brain's going to remember everything from the past and not everything coming. Your brain doesn't, it's a recall organ. It doesn't have new information in it. It has old information in it, and it's regurgitating it at a very fast pace, 40.6 thoughts per minute, whether you're aware of the thoughts or not. So the problem about whether you can solve a client case is not the problem. It's what you're doing with the idea in the moment that I'm not solving this case right now. Your problem is not this training feels difficult, and so I'm going to face that with a new lens. The problem is this training feels difficult. There must be something wrong here. I must not be safe, or I'm about to get embarrassed or waste my time or money. That's what comes up because it's autopilot. So when you're solving complex cases, when you're just facing the client in front of you, the resolution for that client case isn't their chief complaint that you can't identify it, and it's not any tool that you've already learned that you have in your bank of skill. The problem with that moment where you're faced with a client case is how you're thinking about both their chief complaint, what they're presenting with, and what you're thinking about the tools you have at your disposal. Well, and I'll outline those both as we move through here today. Why does it matter? It matters because there's a really common approach that practitioners take, which is that I must not know enough. I must have studied the wrong thing, or the training that I took wasn't comprehensive enough, or my initial massage therapy training didn't have good enough anatomy in it. I heard that for years. Or my yoga teacher training really didn't focus on the right thing. Or my personal training only focused on neuro and it didn't focus on function. Or, I mean, my Pilates training was foundational, and I didn't learn the other parts of Pilates because it's broken out into sections, which a lot of trainings are. So when we get into that thinking about the training that we have, a natural response to that is to take more training. And then we think that we're going to take more training and then we'll have a solution to the problem. But more training doesn't solve the problem. In fact, sometimes more training could just be more data that you've now amassed. And now you've confused yourself with more data, which just creates a bigger problem. The bigger problem being what you thought originally. I don't have enough. I don't know enough. So therefore, I should learn more. And then you end up thinking, God, I learned more and now I still don't know enough. The other piece that feeds into that is that all of us manual and movement practitioners are required to have continued education at some level. Now, not every single certification requires that, but at this point, it's pretty universal that we're all doing continuing education. And hey, Debbie, glad that you're here. And the hang up that I see with the continuing education model, which is important, and I absolutely believe if you've chosen the muse as your body, you get to keep training. But what kind of training are you doing, and what are you doing with that training? For example, for CEs, especially year after year that we get to accumulate them, for CEs, often what's happening with both manual and movement practitioners is if they think that they don't know enough, and they're going to go learn another technique, another tool, another framework, another approach. Now I'm going to go from massage therapy to lymphatic drainage. Now I'm going to go from personal training. I just thought of this, Deb, because you're here. I'm going to go from personal training to VO2. Nothing wrong with massage, VO2, training, or lymphatic drainage. Nothing wrong with all of them. They're amazing. But when we keep going after what we think has the answer outside of us and just take more training and take more training, we've actually compounded this belief that we don't know enough. Because what's missing in the accumulated CEs without a clear path is A, review of what you already know, which every medical provider does do that. They do an annual review of what the foundational material is. That's why I offer annual reviews for all of my practitioners and everyone in my professional training community. That's why we review them, because medical communities do, but not manual and movement practitioners. The other thing that happens when we have reviewed, and now we do want to really learn a new approach, which is again perfectly fine and applicable, and I love this for you, is that those teachings don't also offer implications of those teachings. They'll teach you the lymphatic drainage, but they won't teach you how to reason through what's needed when it works, what's needed when it doesn't work, why it worked, or why it didn't work. That's beyond the actual approach. That's more of the reasoning that comes with that approach. So you guys have heard me say clinical reasoning here for a few weeks now. None of us is signing up to learn how to think. It's not even marketable. What we're signing up for is something that will solve the pain point that we have. If we think we can't solve something and we think that the reason we can't solve it is because we don't know enough, we'll go sign up for more training. The training itself, though, won't give you the knowledge of owning the material. It'll just give you the info that you can then either recirculate or apply. But the knowledge about how it works is a deeper level. It's a deeper level. Okay, so when you are working through, well, what should I go for another technique? Should I go for another approach? Should I use the technique I already have? What am I even going to do with this? I'm going to walk you through an internal audit that you can do to check yourself. Like, did you get everything that you needed from the last training, the last approach, the last tool or technique? Or is there more for you there to now reapply? And I'll say that that's another reason why in the medical community, they do annual reviews, because once you have the information and you've used the information, now you have clinical space and clinical experience, real world experience that now puts a whole new layer on what you already knew. And you guys know this, especially my shots method practitioners are also saying this, like, look, it's all fine and good when I'm here in training, but when I'm with my client, it feels totally different. Exactly. Because that's another learning environment that you can't get from the training itself. That becomes its own training environment. If you took that training environment and felt confused in your clinical space using this information in this clinical space, and this clinical space didn't feel seamless yet, and then you went from this clinical space into another form of learning, another approach, you've now just repeated the same leapfrogging from technique to confusion in the clinical space to technique to confusion in the clinical space. So you get to review, what did you already know? Now that I've applied it in the clinical space, now what I know looks different. Before I ever add new intel, new approaches, new techniques, new approaches and frameworks, etc. So I hope this is landing for you guys. It's really a big, it's a gap that we don't see is happening as we're hungrily going after the next bit of information that we think is going to help us, the next tool that we're going to use. And we're guided to do that anyway because we need CEs to keep our credentials. So it's called metacognition, when you look back at your own system and go, how is this system set up actually? And is it serving me, or am I just on autopilot within my own system? That's a form of thinking, metacognition. So again, it's not the problem. The CEs aren't the problem. It's how you're thinking about the CEs. Are you using the CEs to confuse you and stack information and data download? Or are you using the CEs to enhance what you already know? What I often have done is I wanted to know what I wanted to know, and I also needed the CEs. So I'd pick really light and easy CEs to fill my brain and my requirements so that I could deeper dive over here on something that I didn't have CEs available for. And so that's how I've toggled that in years where I was doing a deep dive on a particular train of clinical work that didn't have a CE course that went with it. So there's ways to navigate that. I'm just giving you one example. There's ways to navigate that, but how you think about the CE structure is needed, not just that there is a CE structure. How you think about why your tools aren't working matters, not just my tools aren't working, I must need a new tool. Okay? So that's the clarity here that I'm drawing. A lot of us, a lot of you who are so proficient and so qualified gulp in information in the most beautiful way. And without a strategy on how to organize that information, you become data dumped, where you're drowning in the data and you're confused and you don't realize that you're confused because confusion feels like frustration. So then the frustration leads to, I've got to solve this problem of frustration. I'm going to get out of this space that I'm in. I'm going to go somewhere else to get more information. And that it just pile drives instead of staying deep here where you are right now, which most training doesn't offer. It just doesn't. Okay. So, and the other place where it might also, where more data, more technique, more learning might also confuse you, this just happened in our community as well, is when there's more to consider before fully understanding what you're currently working on. When you don't fully understand this and you jump to another, and you don't fully understand that one either, they might feel like they conflict. Well, he said to do it this way, but she said it does it that way. Okay, well, I don't understand now, but I'm going to go with my gut. I'm going to go with what feels right. I'm going to take a hunch. Cool. Absolutely follow your somatic resources. They're there for you for a reason. You're a big, gorgeous, beautiful human. But if we're just confused and we don't get clarity on the confusion while we're making a decision, we've still left that body of information not understood. And that is the reasoning. That is the thinking about the information so that you can get super clear about why it works for you or why it doesn't work for you instead of just, I don't really know, so I'm going to go over here and I don't really know why I'm going to go over here either. There's a lot of practitioners that are doing that in this habit that we have of amassing CEs and just going for the next one and gulping down 36 hours of CEs in a 2-year period of time, which some of our licenses do require that. That's a lot of training for sure. Okay, so let's walk through an internal audit so you can tell for yourself if you are doing any of the downloading data, creating confusion for yourself, or making a problem out of the problem instead of creating a solution for the problem. Okay, so I'm going to present a few real-time examples that I've seen as I've been mentoring really proficient practitioners who are very capable, and we get ourselves stuck up a little bit in some of these places. I call them like career traps. Okay, if you've ever, hey, Sophia Cake, nice to see you here too. Um, if you are or have ever, now I'm going to ask you this actually. We need to prepare ourselves for this audit. This just came through. I've done weekly labs and audits for practitioners for many, many weeks. And it's fascinating to see how we hide from our own internal audit. Okay. And I mean that with affection. We don't want to look like we don't know what we're doing. I know that. I don't either. I know you don't want to look like you don't know what you're doing. We want to have all of the hard work that we've already invested in mean something. So do I. Believe me, so do I. So when we do the audit, we must prepare ourselves for authentic honesty and not just more brain data. No, yes, no, yes. The brain's going to decide real quickly for you, 40.6 thoughts per minute. You've got to prepare yourselves for the awareness that comes with the audit. The awareness is the key, not more data. The awareness about what you do with the information is the audit. Okay. So I'm going to invite you to just take a nice deep breath here. Make sure you can feel something in your body other than your brain worrying right now. Feel your foot, feel your hip. Take a nice deep breath. Feel where your breath comes in your body. You can even do what I call 555 and look around the room and note 5 different colors that you see. Listen to 5 different sounds that you hear around you. Maybe you hear the light, maybe you hear the refrigerator, maybe you hear a vacuum cleaner, maybe you hear street noise. Notice that as you're creating awareness about your senses, that your body starts to feel more. If that's happened for you right now, I'm going to invite you to take that tool with you into your client space because we can't drive our brain any faster than it goes and get more clarity about what's next. The only thing we can do when we drive our brain like that is to recall what's in the past. So, in order to be present for this audit and to be present with the client case that's in front of you, you must be present. So, the 555, five senses, five sounds, five smells. Bring in your senses, do five of them. It takes all of 2 minutes, and get yourself really centered here and present for the audit. Otherwise, the audit won't have value for you and you'll miss something that actually could be in the way for you. Okay. So ask yourself this after you've centered yourself. Ask yourself this. Have you ever, or are you currently thinking that there's another tool that you don't yet have in your possession, another technique, another training? Maybe it's myofascial, maybe it's trigger point, maybe it's neuro, maybe it's assessment of some kind. Is there a tool that you think is missing from you? Is there a tool that you think is missing? You don't know this thing that this other tool would give you. If you answered yes or maybe to that question, what that equals is you're outsourcing your own power to something outside of you. Wait, well, what do you mean, Gina? Like, if I don't know it, I don't know it. I hear you, and you already know plenty. But the feeling that we have, the meaning that we make about that feeling, that I don't know something, means I'm in lack. And if I'm in lack, I'm not in my own power. The way it would sound differently in the audit is there's plenty of things that I want to know, and I'm super stoked to go learn them all because I'm great now, and it's going to be even better when I have more access to other things. It sounds subtle, but you get to be honest with yourself. What are you saying to yourself about your tools and techniques? If you're saying that a tool is missing from you, you're powerless to it. Okay. And that matters. It's what you do with your mind around it, not what you do with the tool. Okay. Same thing goes for techniques. If you believe that the techniques that you do know, maybe you're a lymphatic person, maybe you're a Pilates person, maybe you are, which is actually more of a methodology. Let's say you do active stretching, active release stretching, okay? So you only do that. You only do fascial work. Fascia is actually a good one to use. We'll use that as the example here because I know that there's fascia fiends in the world. I am with you guys. Fascia is amazing. It's not the only structure in the body though. So if you're a fascia person, as an example, or pick any other technique approach, if you are approach technique specific, that's the only one that's needed, then you're in absolutes about the way the body works, which means you're overshadowing your knowing about how the body's designed. And when you overshadow your knowing, it's like a form of gaslighting. You're telling yourself that you shouldn't think the way you know the body's wired. And that will immediately intercept your strategic thinking. If you can't strategically think through whether this approach is appropriate or applicable in this moment, then you don't have reasoning around the technique. You're in absolutes. And we often do that, have absolutes like this can only be the way, because we're looking for safety. If I'm absolutely clear this is the only way, then I won't get distracted and I'll be safe here in this space. If you are one of those people that are adamant about your way is the only way, and again, you get to come from a real honest place about that in the audit, then you are overshadowing your strategic thinking and you're actually continuing to feel uncomfortable, even fear-based around your knowledge because you've overshadowed your knowing that that's not the way the body works. It doesn't have only stretching or only fascia or only trigger points in it. It's got all of it. And you need to be able to sort all that out while you're clinically reasoning, while you're facing the problem that your client presented with calmly. Okay. Number 3 in the audit. If you think again to a client, maybe one that you're working on right now, or the last one that you just recently worked on and it didn't go the way you wanted it to go, be real honest with yourself and ask yourself, did you say, I don't know how to solve this? Were you in training recently with a mentor and said, I don't know how to solve this? Were you talking to a peer recently in a peer review group and said, I don't know what I'm doing? Did you tell your client? Did you tell yourself after the client left, I don't know how to solve this? I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. Like, were you in that like space of frustration? Nothing wrong with that, by the way. You're not expected to have all the answers all the time. But if you are expecting yourself to have all the answers all the time, that's your problem. You're expecting perfection too fast and too soon, and you're being uh, abusive about it. You're harming yourself from not knowing. And that's not the problem. The problem isn't that you don't know, it's what you did with the not knowing. Okay? It's fear-based, it's disempowering, and it takes you out, believe it or not, it takes you out of solving it because now you have an emotional reaction to how you handled not knowing. And when you have an emotional reaction, you're on autopilot and it stings deep. We already said that at the beginning. It's neuroscience. I'm not making this up. It's neuroscience. Okay. So instead, when you don't know how to solve something, what you get to say is, I need to find this out. I need to find this out and be open instead of driven or um, rigid about the not knowing or frustrated. If you're only frustrated and you don't move past the frustration into commitment, committed action to finding the answer, then the frustration is what takes you out of the game, not that there's a problem in front of you that you haven't solved yet. Okay. And then number 4 in the audit. Is this resonating with any of you? Any of you that are here live? Hi, I see so many more of you joined live. Is this resonating with any of you? Are you recognizing yourselves in any piece of this audit? There's usually one, sometimes more than one. Don't be alarmed if there's more than one because they're all solvable. And I'll walk you through at the end of our training here today on how to solve them. In order to solve something, you must know it exists. Knowing that exists is not something wrong with you. Knowing it exists means you're honest enough to be aware so that you can do something about it. Again, the problem isn't that you don't know, it's what you're doing with the problem. It's what you're thinking about having the problem. It's very good. Okay, awesome, Debbie. Glad. How about the rest of you? Is any of this landing for you? I hope that this is landing for you. I want you to have what you want to have. I want you to have leadership on your own mind space, and I want you to be available for the clients that are trusting you so that you can create the results that you're committed to creating. I want this for all of you. So the audit matters to me that you have it. Okay. And again, you don't need to report the audit to me. This is for you to know. And then what do you do when you recognize that you are like, yeah, that's how I've been behaving up until now? What are you doing with that? Is it just information? Are you neutral and objective about that information? Or are you turning on the self-blame again and the internal beat up? That doesn't work. It's the beat up and the self-blame that's the problem, not the absence of knowing. It's not the problem, it's how you're seeing the problem. It's not that you don't know, it's what you're doing with yourself when you recognize you don't know something or have behaved in a way you don't want to behave. Okay, this fourth part of our audit. When you are thinking that it's on the client side of things that your plan didn't work, when you're thinking that it's on the client side of things that your plan didn't work, you are dividing yourself away from the solution. So how would it sound if you thought it was the client side? None of you do that here anymore because I've kiboshed this for the last several years. When we blame our client for not being compliant for doing their homework, well, he just won't do XYZ and she just didn't do ABC. We don't get to do that anymore, guys. If you have an aftercare plan for your client and they haven't done it, it's because you didn't enroll them in it. You didn't describe the reasons why clearly enough that it made sense to their higher knowing. You just barked an order at them, but didn't have any clarity in your messaging. And so they're like, well, that just sounds like busy work. I'm not going to do it. You wouldn't either, by the way. If I told you to just go do something and I didn't express to you how and why it matters and how and why the work would create a result for you, you wouldn't do it. You're busy. So is the rest of the world. So are your clients. So if you're still blaming your clients for not being compliant, no, Gina, you don't understand. I've told this person 3 times they need to stand, sit, or work differently or move differently. Got it. But if they don't understand the implications for why they're doing it, and they haven't expressed their reasoning or their what's the word I'm looking for? If they haven't confessed that they need help, I heard you tell me I need to do XYZ, and it's just not working for me when I'm not seeing you from week to week. I'm having a hard time with XYZ. If they're not explaining it in that way to you, then you haven't expressed to them the meaning and the reason for it. They're just reporting to you like you're a boss, like you're checklisting them. Okay. So listen for that as well. And when you are outsourcing to your client that they're the reason, you've taken yourself out of the solution game. How can you possibly solve it? You've divided yourself away from the solution if you're making it your client's problem. Or if you're saying that it's their pathology or it's their doctor or it's their genetics, their mom and their sister had the same thing. Okay, well, genes don't have to express themselves. And as soon as you're clear that that's the reason why your plan didn't work without any other background information to confirm your reasoning, you've kept yourself out of the reasoning and you've blamed something outside of you. And now you're not owning that you can lead them to a solution even if the solution means an improved state, right? So I've always said every musculoskeletal pain and chief complaint that is presented to us can be solved, even if the solving means alleviating some of it. Okay, so well, that's not solving, Gina. Okay, so let's just reframe it then. Every musculoskeletal pain point that has come through my clinic, I have been able to positively affect, if not alleviate it completely. So I have decades of proof on that, and I believe that because that's clinically researched. Have I been able to offer someone surgery? No, because that's not what I do. Have I been able to help someone prepare for surgery, make the surgery easier, and rehab them faster afterward? Absolutely. So I can have an effect on that, even when there needs to be another intervention. So can you. But if we continue to say, well, they need surgery, or the surgery didn't go well, their PT wasn't effective, or they didn't do their homework, as soon as we get into the client blaming, the client not compliant, or the client's background or pathology is the problem, then we are taking ourselves out of the leadership role to solve it. We are no longer leading the solution. We've decided we're going to surrender to the problem. That's the problem. The fact that you aren't absolutely adamant you can do something, not renegade and reckless, but I know there's something here. I know there's something here. I can get this person to have less pain and discomfort. I know I can. If you don't keep yourself in that pressure cooker of knowing you can solve part of their pain or all of their pain, then that's the problem. If you don't hold yourself in that pressure, that's the problem. Not the problem isn't that you haven't yet solved it. It's what you're doing with the not yet. It's how you're thinking about the problem not being solved. Okay, so I hope that these 4 audit points have been lovingly provocative to you and for you, because these habits of thinking, the ways that we organize ourselves around information are subtle and fast. And when we have thinking habits that are subtle and fast, you might not see that you're in the way. With love, not with more self-deprecation, but you may not see that you're in the way. And when you don't see that you're in the way, what you do about that next could be busy. You could be jump into other techniques. You could be rapid firing into your CEs. You could be deciding to quit the industry, which I really don't want you to do. If your heart's calling you to be here, there's something for you here. It just might not be the next bit of data, the next technique, the next CE. It might be what you're doing with that information that you already have amassed. Okay, so how do we think about our problems and know that we have audited ourselves and arrive at solutions reliably? How do we do that? Okay, if you're serious about that, I'm here for you. If you're serious about that, there's lots of ways that I can support you. It's one of the reasons why we created our one-on-one audits, where we can support you one-on-one with how you're thinking through a client case study. It's easy, it's straightforward, it happens fast, and there's always a way to see what's in the gap. The awareness is step 1. You've got to see where you are cogging the wheel. You've got to see where you're making a problem that's in the way of you solving the problem that's been presented. And that solving the problem that's been presented and awareness about how you're thinking about the problem is a skill in itself. It's why we do leadership in our community. It's not that the practitioners don't know enough. They absolutely know enough. At the end of a year with me, they absolutely have enough information. enough anatomy, enough function, enough structure, enough assessments, enough skill, enough practice. Absolutely. But if they're still thinking in a way that gets them to not use that information and they're not staying in utilizing that information, which is its own skill, then just learning more to-dos isn't going to help. And it's always an easy sight for me to see when a practitioner will come and share with me what their treatment plan was, and it's got a lot of to-dos in it. Of course it has to-dos in it, guys. You are service people. That I'm not, I am absolutely in support of to-doing. But the reasoning is, why did you do what you did? The reasoning is, what was presented here and what did it mean? Now, that is a skill in itself. That's a skill in itself that usually does not get addressed. Welcome back, Eileen. Usually does not get addressed when we're just learning the tool itself. The skill of having awareness about how you're thinking about it and what you're doing with it is its own skill. Eileen's nodding because we've done this before with like, okay, just show me where. And it's usually, guys, honestly, it's usually right at the very beginning. I mean this with so much love. It's not as complicated as you're making it. The place that we get in the gap is usually right in the first couple minutes. Like my high level practitioners will run through a case study and we're in minute one of the intake. And it's there. It's right there. It's under your nose. It's right there. So my point in sharing that isn't to, again, and don't do this to yourself because I'm not doing it. It's not to self-implode on, oh my God, I can't believe I missed something that obvious. The intention is to be like, guys, it's simple, but you haven't been taught how to think this way in a technique training before. That's the difference. This is its own skill set. It's why we have the audits. It's why I run the clinical labs. It's why I train my practitioners the way I do. Okay, so you get to be aware first. And sometimes that can come from your own self-awareness, like through the audit we just ran through, the audit checkpoints. And sometimes you need a partner in that. You can't see the ponytail in the back of your head either. Doesn't mean you're less than, unless you think it means you're less than. And that's the problem. I have had so many practitioners say, I want to do an audit with you. I want to bring a client case study. I really want to get to the bottom of this with you. And they don't come. That's the problem. That whatever took you out of actually striving to be like, I'm going to get to the bottom of this no matter what it takes, whatever took you out of that is the problem because you're taking yourself out of the solution. And maybe it's one of the four checkpoints we already went through. Maybe it's something else. But if you really want the solution, you'll stay until you get it, not skip to something else. And sometimes we don't know if we're skipping or not. That's where I come in. Like, okay, you just hop skipped. And then when you catch yourself doing that, you're trained to see it. Oh, I hop skipped. And you'll see it then. Once you have that skill, you won't do that anymore because you had enough feedback. You're like, you know what? Every time I do my ponytail this way and I look in the mirror, it looks crooked. Okay, I've done that 3 times now. It's not working. I'm going to do it a different way. It's the same. It's the same that we do with learning how to checkpoint yourself. Okay, so awareness is step one. And I would, if you want to workshop through this on your own here, think of a client that you haven't yet resolved their pain point. Not a brand new one because you get to give yourself a minute, but a client that you haven't yet resolved. You've seen them 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 or more times, and they have the same pain. Now, if you already use the audit that we went through today, you will recognize, ooh, I might have been outsourcing that and saying it was the client's problem, but actually, these results are on me. Shouldn't be 7 times with the same pain. Oh, but they have pathology. Okay, then you did that fourth part of the audit checkpoint. Don't do that. There's a way you can help. Have you? Yay or nay? It's not a character assassination, just yes, I have or no, I haven't. You might also have a Groundhog's Day situation where they get better and then it comes back, and then they get better and then it comes back. That's Groundhog's Day. It's rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. Okay. Maybe you don't have any of those. Think then of a client case study that you're a little spooked by. And you'd have to be honest about that with yourself. And we've all been there where you're like, yee, I don't know. Is this even in my scope? Notice that the question is already outsourcing, that you're not capable. You might not be. It might be out of your scope. You get to stay with, why did you say that? Is it because when things get hard, you surrender? Because that's the problem. Or is it that you're like, this is definitely not in my scope, and here's why? Now you're in clinical reasoning land. Or maybe you just have like an overall lack of confidence where you're like, I don't know. I feel like everybody else that I'm in peer review groups, they know more than me and they just, it seems to just rattle off their tongue. And I don't know, I get kind of twisted up and turned around and I'm overthinking and underthinking. And I don't know, it's just too much. Da, da, da. That's all lack of confidence. Okay. So think of one of those, or maybe you have a season of all of them. Think of one of all of those. Those are all signals. Okay, so the signal is that you get to organize why you are creating Groundhog's Day, not yet knowing, lack of confidence, or fear. You get to organize that. There's no extra tool that's outside of you that's going to solve your confidence. There's no extra technique out there that's needed that you don't already have access to. I promise you. You are all listening to this because you're skilled. You have skill. Is there other things that you might want to know? Yes, we talked about that at the top of the training today. You get to do that from a place of enthusiasm after you already know that you are vetted. You're good. You can create results. If you're not in that headspace about it, then thinking the tool or technique or approach outside of you has the answer is right back to where we started at the top of our talk today. That's the problem. You're making the problem for yourself if you think that. I'm just going to hungrily take more training. I'm just going to hungrily take more training. I'm going to organize all my notes. My friends, that's not what's going to take care of your lack of confidence. It's not going to solve the Groundhog Day. What you do with that information. I know I say that sometimes and it doesn't quite land. It's the problem that you think you have instead of the awareness of how you're creating the problem. Okay, so if you're serious about this and you want to create a working crafting plan, that's a skill that can be easily taught and easily learned. And I know that because I witness that all the time in my community when practitioners are like, I have all this information. Please help me organize it. I'm like, here we go. Let's do that. Some of our earlier community, like I'd say, I remember this happening in 2014. Yeah, it was a long time ago. I remember we weren't even on Zoom yet. Isn't that crazy? Wow. Wow. Yeah, and the wheel was quite almost not yet developed yet too, and we all survived. But I remember back in the day, practitioners would say, okay, I have a client with X. Do you know what do I do? And I actually tried to answer it for them. Well, I would do ba 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 ba. And all that happened in those conversations was like deer in headlights. Like, what the freak did you just say? What? It was overwhelm. It was the to-dos don't answer the client case study. The implications of the to-dos and why you would do them, or how you skipped over a to-do and didn't see its implication on the next to-do, that's the skill I'm talking about here. You already have to-dos. I know you do. Hearing my to-dos isn't going to clear that up for you. Hearing a colleague's to-dos isn't going to clear it up for you. What's going to clear it up for you is learning your awareness of how you're in the way and then how to put all that together so that your brain can organize it and not continue to take you out of the race. That's the skill. It can be easily taught, it can be easily learned. You don't want to become a copycat artist. You don't want to take a 3-minute reel off the internet and be like, well, that practitioner did that and they have 1 million followers, so I'm going to do that on the next person I have with an ankle problem. That's not how you do to-dos, guys. That will keep you fear-based and feeling lacking for a long time. Because if you don't understand the implications around them, you're still outsourcing your power to someone else's technique. And I'm appealing to you not to do that as experts. I'm appealing to you not to do that. Okay. Even my own techniques, which I think are bomb ass, by the way. I want you to know why you would do them. not just copy me doing them. Okay. And every good, strong clinician trainer will have the same approach for you. They won't just give you 3-minute reels and memes to follow. Okay. I hope there was value for you here, guys. I want you to check yourselves on the audit, on your own self audit. I want you to come up with clarity. I want you to have the results that you get to have for the people that you love to serve. They want them from you too. And we're going to talk about that next week, actually, about what they really want from you. It's not what you think. It's just not what you think. Okay, I know we interrupted our original scheduled programming so that Eileen could talk to a client. Eileen, do you want to give us like how much time we have? Do you want to give us a 1 or 2 minute recap of how that went? I'd love to hear.
Yeah, she came in glowing and so excited and said in her own reality how she realizes that doing the alignment and understanding the implications of why the alignment is so important, she's able to draw connections to why she ended up having a knee replacement and what
Mm.
she now uses her feet totally different. And she said to me, look at my toes used to be all curled up, and now I know how to use my feet and I'm in alignment and they don't curl up anymore and I don't have pain. It was just really exciting.
Oh, so good. You know what I loved? Well, first of all, I loved all of that. Congratulations to you and your client. The other thing that I loved is even your client wanted the implications of the whys. So, practitioners, I want us to all hear this. When we don't have clarity on the why we're doing something, why we're not doing something, why it's working or why it's not working, we are literally holding ourselves back because that information even matters to our clients who aren't the clinicians, right? I'm appealing to you guys. Like, that's the clinical reasoning part of all of the tools and training you've already had up to date. That's the clinical reasoning part. You have to have that if you really want to feel authentically powered to create results. And you get to, absolutely, you get to. So, congratulations, Eileen. I love that. And you're reminding me of another similar case study that's making its rounds through our alum right now. Somebody else in our alum is also working on with a client who had foot trouble and then knee trouble following that. There's definitely a connection there. So I'm going to put you two in touch in case there's any reasoning and pathways that you guys can support each other on. If that would support you, you let me know and send me a note and I'll connect the two of you together. Okay, guys, it's so fun to talk to you guys today. Remember, the problem is not the problem. The problem is how you see the problem. If you have awareness about how you're seeing it, you see it differently, and now all you see is solutions. And we'll leave the link here for you for any of you who do want to do an audit with us. I promise you, they're quick and straightforward and easy. You'll have clarity and you'll move through it. Eileen's nodding and smiling. I love that for you. Okay, good. Thank you. Excellent. And I'll see you guys here, same time, same channel next week. Bye for now.